going to ask you some questions. Who's on Facebook? Stretch high, because you've been sitting in the chair a while. How about Instagram? Twitter? Give me some jazz hands. Okay. So what this tells me is that you're connected. And I have a confession. I'm a connection junkie. And one of the reasons I'm here, as he said, is I started one of the largest online parenting communities in the world. And I also teach a class. And what I want you to know from the end of this talk is how to have mindful connections. What I like to say is life beyond the like button. Life beyond the like button. But let me back up, tell you my life gave me lemon story. This is a map that shows you all the moves that I've made in my life. I'm an Air Force kid, so we moved around a lot. From kindergarten through grad schools, 12 different schools. Didn't give me a very big sense of community. Last move was to Park Slope, Brooklyn in 1998. Started a rat race job, working 65 hours a week. I'd go into the city in the morning, come home at 9 o'clock at night. Still had no connection to a community. But that changed after 9/11. See, my first child was due on 9/12. And 3 days after 9/11, I'm carrying a baby. And I don't know anybody. But I do know there's a new mommy group. So I end up having the wherewithal to go and sign up for a new mommy group. And once a week, we go into a cafe. And we talk about sleep deprivation and diaper issues, and I felt connection. That first seed of connection. And it was intoxicating. So kind of on a whim, I started a Yahoo group. Now you got to remember, no Facebook back in 2002, no Twitter, no Instagram, and smartphones, they were dumb. So I started this group, and now it's 5,000 families in the Park Slope area and over 100 different email groups. And you'll notice that it doesn't say Facebook groups, email groups. And we have done some incredible things. After Hurricane Sandy, the local soup kitchen called us up, actually they emailed us, and said we need 600 eggs by 9 o'clock. It was about 5 o'clock. Sent out an email, boom. Within 4 hours, we had 4,000 hard-boiled eggs. The power of community to make change. We also had a need for backpacks for the families that were going to start to go to school. Within 45 minutes, we had 45 backpacks delivered to the local high school. Again, intoxicating. So wonderful what we've been able to do with this community. But we also have what I call mindful connections. Connections that you make where you feel understood. Mindful connections where you feel like somebody knows what you're feeling. And this was an email that somebody posted, and the subject was coming undone. And I'm going to read it because her words are so powerful. This may be odd to put out to a virtual group, but lately the pressures of single parenting, a hard job, freelance work, and a spirited toddler have been taking their toll on me. Just writing this makes me feel overwhelmed. I've been crying all week. Tell me this is just temporary, this too shall pass, as my mother would say. Or maybe, maybe it won't. You know, I just don't know. Anyone want to take me out for a drink? She sent it at 10:56 at night, and by 11:14 she had her first response. 3 or 4 paragraphs of compassion, 3 or 4 paragraphs that included it's going to be okay, and just making this woman feel like she's not alone. A mindful connection. Within 24 hours, she had 30 emails. Again, long emails. Now, this could not have happened with a like button, right? Couldn't happen with a like button. And also, it probably couldn't have happened, she probably wouldn't have picked up the phone. Because the neat thing about technology is that you can have interactions with people that you might not feel comfortable in a face-to-face situation, right? Have you done that? Who's had a good texting session where you've actually felt like, wow, I really made a connection? Things that you couldn't do in person or on the phone. But that piece of technology. So I want you to think of mindful connections as not things that have to be face-to-face. So I teach a class at NYU, grad class in interpersonal, and when I first started about 10 years ago, I had 1 week with technology and relationships. We talked about long-distance relationships. We talked about how using technology can help in long-distance relationships. A couple years later, it turned out I had to add another week. Facebook research started coming out. And a couple weeks after that, we had to add another week. And now, I have to weave through the course technology. How do we present ourselves online? What's our identity? How do we maintain our relationships on a day-to-day basis using technology? It's here, and it's here to stay. So we talk about the culture of ghost connections. Culture of ghost connections. And by that, I mean parasocial relationships. Parasocial relationships? Let me explain. Parasocial relationships came out in the 50s to describe celebrity and fan culture. How fans would feel like they have a relationship with the people that are just actors and celebrities, right? Does that make kind of sense? Now let's add 2014. You can follow people on Twitter. You can follow people on their Facebook. And do you feel kind of like you know those celebrities? You kind of know, or at least you know the personal assistant who's posting their tweets. I have a parasocial relationship with Josh Groban. And he lives in Tribeca, so I'm hoping that he'll show up in my class and talk about parasocial relationships. So that's parasocial relationships. Here's a cartoon that my friend, who I met on Park Slope Parents, Gerardo Blumenkrantz, put together. So it's 2 people in a cafe. Looks familiar, but here's the caption, which you can't see, which says, best Facebook logo, friends forever. So these people are in a cafe, they're Facebook friends, they don't even know it. So the next thing I want to talk about is hyperpersonal communication and hyperpersonal relationships. So when computer-mediated communication came out, people said it's never going to replace face-to-face communication. Face-to-face is the gold standard, and I was one of those people. I was the old guard saying, face-to-face, that's the best way to stay connected. But what they found, and Joe Walther, who coined this term, hyperpersonal relationships, he found that people are as satisfied or more satisfied with their online relationships. Wait a minute, I thought face-to-face was the gold standard. But think about it. You can rehearse what you're going to put online. You're going to use just the photos that you want to use. So that gives you a sense of, hey, this is my best self. And backwards, you're seeing that other person's best self, right? So why wouldn't you think, I have a pretty good relationship because I'm seeing the best of you and you're seeing the best of me. What a great relationship. But if you look at the Facebook research that's coming out, what it's showing is that the more time you spend online, the more likely you are to believe that other people have a better life than you. Other people have a better life than you. So you know what's going on in your life. I got all the bad, all the good, I only show the good. But we don't necessarily remember that the other people who we think, we see their vacation photos, we see what's going on with their weddings and all of those things, but we're not seeing their bad side. So it gives us an inflated sense of what's going on in their life, and that comparison isn't very good. And in cyberspace, no one can smell your farts. So Bill Rollins talks about co-creating friendships. He's pinnacle guy in the friendship communication literature. Co-creating friendships. And he says it happens by sharing stories and it happens by sharing experiences. So you can share experiences and stories. You can share stories with each other via email, but you can also share experiences. But if you share a YouTube video with somebody, is that a shared experience? Not necessarily. Yeah, no, exactly. So we have to think about what are the ghost relationships, the ghost connections that we have online, and is this what we're wanting to spend our time on? Is this how we're wanting to spend our quality time? So the next thing we talk about is celebrity culture. What Sherry Turkle calls, I share, therefore I am. I share, therefore I am. And young people right now, when you ask them what they want to be, they don't say, I want to be an athlete. They want to be a famous athlete. A famous athlete. So I'm talking to my daughter, my 12-year-old daughter, and I said, I'm telling her about celebrity culture. She said, you know what, Mommy, there's a girl at school. She's got an Instagram account, and she's got 300 followers. And I said, is she a high schooler? No, she's 12. She's got 300 followers on Instagram. And I was a little blown away. I said, well, what does she do? Well, she posts selfies, and she just likes collecting followers. I mean, what is that up? What's up with that? I mean, why do we have this need to collect people? It's like collecting people. So if we're going to talk about I share, therefore I am, and this idea of wanting to be adored and admired, we have to talk about Narcissus. So Narcissus was a Greek mythological character. He was a hunter. And he was good looking, like George Clooney good looking, like Chris Helmsworth good looking. He was a little vain. Some of you have heard of narcissism. It comes from this guy. So he's a little vain and self-centered, and he pissed off a bunch of sea nymphs. Well, actually broke their heart, but he pissed off Nemesis, the goddess of vengeance. So the goddess of vengeance ended up deciding that he would look into a pool of water, and he fell in love with himself. This would be the first selfie. Fell in love with himself and ended up, he couldn't leave himself, and he starved and he died. I mean, that's kind of a bummer. But take a step back. Is it possible that that's what we're doing with our technology? We're screaming, look at me, but we're not getting the connections that we really want. The last thing is the culture of availability. So I've already been at the conference. I've already made one new Facebook friend. So the idea of social saturation, this is something that came out of Gergen. He wrote a book called Social Saturation. Here's our social circle. It's now gotten bigger. I'm bigger by one person already, and maybe by the end of the conference I'll be bigger by a lot of people. And that feeling of having so many connections is kind of cool, but it's also a little sense of responsibility, right? I got to keep in touch with these people. 150 years ago, you moved away, you probably didn't see these people again. 100 years ago, if you had enough money, you could make a phone call, you could write letters. But think about it. Now we can keep in touch on Facebook. There's so many ways to stay together. So we are socially saturated. The next thing is that we're always connected. We're always connected. How many people sleep with their cell phone by their bed? Okay. It's okay, I do it too. You guys are like, ugh. Yes, you sleep with your, and it's one thing to go, well, my alarm is on my cell phone, of course. How many people, if you hear that familiar bzz, bzz, after the lights are already out, will wake up and see who wrote? Who wrote you? Who sent you an email, okay? Remember, I'm a junkie, so I know your pain. I know your pain. So we're always connected, and just as a side note, I came this morning and I didn't realize that somehow I didn't get my phone plugged in, and I'm looking, I've got 36% battery. I'm like, how am I going to get through? It's 11 o'clock in the morning. So I come in like a junkie, and I'm asking people, do you have a connect? Can I plug in? Like, what's going to happen if I go off the grid? But do you know that feeling when you have a little battery left? Oh my God, I might run out. I might not be connected. So I want to challenge you today. I want to challenge you to make more mindful connections. Oh, this is a photo I took on the subway a couple weeks ago. Every single one of these people is connected. And if you look at the woman with the pink phone, there's a little girl behind her. She's connected too. And in front of her is her dad, and he's connected too. I thought this was so sad and so relevant to what we're talking about today. So back to the challenge. I challenge you to make more mindful connections. First of all, oh, this is a picture in Prospect Park that I take on what I call mindful walks with my dearest friends. I challenge you to make technology wait. For an hour a day, turn your phone on flight mode. Can you do it? I've seen lots of no, I can't do it. Try. How about 5 minutes for a day? 5 minutes a day, and then work up. What are you going to miss? You know, William Dereskowitz writes this great essay about the end of solitude. The end of solitude. And he says, we don't know how to be alone with ourselves in the world anymore. Just alone. I mean, what are we doing? We can't even be alone with ourselves? We have to be connected. You go into Starbucks, you look, and there you are. Everybody looks connected. Because what would happen if you just sat there? Well, what's that loser all about? He doesn't have any connection. So, make technology wait. I challenge you, make technology wait. Because what are you saying if you're in the middle of a conversation with somebody and you look at your phone? It's been said a lot of times, but what you're saying is whatever's on my phone is more important than you, who you're with. Is that the message we want to be giving to our friends? Is that the message I want to be giving to my kids? The second challenge that I have for you is about not being an extra in your own life. Don't be an extra in your own life. And this is an aquarium that my daughters are visiting, and they're sitting outside, but I feel like this is what we do. We masterfully say this is what's going on Facebook, this is going on Twitter, but are we really sharing all of ourselves? Or are we standing on the outside looking in, seeing how many likes we get, seeing how many comments we get? So I challenge you, to like less and connect more. Like less, connect more. I got an email this morning, unfortunately, a Facebook post, and all it said was relapse. Friend of mine with cancer, relapse. 4 people liked that post. I'm like, what does that mean? So I sent myself a nudge mail, and I'm going to write him an email later, a thoughtful email. The next thing is my brother, 1966, to represent the shallowness of our connections. So the shallowness of our connections, and the goal here is to trim shallow connections. Trim your shallow connections. It doesn't mean to unfriend people. Maybe all you do is say, there's 5 people that I don't necessarily have to see every single news feed. I'm going to hide their news feed. Those weak connections can be important, so don't get rid of them, but just hide them, okay? So what can we do to trim those shallow connections so that we have more time? There's only 24 hours in a day. If you read somebody you don't care about that much, that's taking away from more mindful connections. So let me ask you, did any of this touch a nerve with any of you today? Awesome. So I want to challenge you to jump in and mindfully connect. Thank you.